It's good to see everybody again today. This is a challenging topic to deal with, but I want to begin as I did yesterday to give honor to Brother Tom Childers. I don't know how many of you knew Tom, but he was such a really good, faithful man, uh, and I just appreciated him so much. If you don't know him, go back and watch some of the material that he provided. When he passed away, he was one of the elders at the Finger congregation, serving along with Brother Earl Edwards. Just such good folks. But my disclaimer again today, and I want everybody to see this, I am not an expert. And I'm going to do as Brother Tom did when he taught the classes. I'm going to give some time, and today even more so, for you to be able to share something that you've learned. Uh, my son Micah and I talked about this all the way up here since he works with AI in his business work. He is a supervisor of managed IT for Ben Lomond Telephone, which is an 8-county cooperative. They have thousands of customers, and he's the guy that goes out and bids how much it costs to be able to get their services, and then goes out and provides that services. And he uses AI, and so I'll probably defer to him and maybe ask him a question or two as we go along today. Yesterday was ethics on it, but the question today is not the ethics, but is there an ethical way for churches and preachers to be able to use artificial intelligence? And I think there is. And I just want to mention to you that there's a lot, or several, if you will, options out there for people to be able to choose from. Probably the most notable is ChatGPT. I subscribed for a month so I could be able to have all the time I wanted on this, but there's also Perplexity, and I will tell you that I have been using Perplexity some, and for theological questions, it seems to be a little more accurate than ChatGPT. Grok, which is what Micah uses in his work, it's provided by X, which is Elon Musk's company. Gemini, Google's, and if you type gemini.google.com, you can get to it real easily. I will tell you that this morning I tried to use one when I got here, and it said trying. There's too many people trying, wait again and do it again later. So that'll give you some kind of idea. Copilot is Microsoft's AI. Claude by Anthropic. All of these have a little bit different response. I will tell you, Micah decided on the way up here that he would ask who I was. He'd say, "Who is Tony Lawrence from McMinnville, Tennessee?" And shockingly, it gave a lot of personal details about me. I mean, really personal details. He said he was formerly the preacher at Bobby Branch. He served there for 40 years, and the congregation is known as the church, actually known as the Church of Christ at Bobby Branch, which is the way it is legally. It said that he has spoken at the Southeast Institute of Biblical Studies, and said most recently he held a gospel meeting at the Arlington Church of Christ, which I did Sunday through Tuesday of this week. So, I mean, this is really like, is there somebody at my house? But it did make a few mistakes. I'm trying to think what mistakes it made. Yeah, it said I went to David Lipscomb University when I went to Freed-Hardeman University. But it did say I graduated from Freed-Hardeman. But I thought it was interesting. It did make several mistakes, and Micah he was doing it orally, talking to it back and forth. And he said, "I don't think that's right." And Grok responded, said, "You're right, I made a mistake." It was really sort of spooky, I guess the best way to put it, as he conversed back and forth while we were driving, and I'd say, "Ask it this, ask it that," but it was amazing the detail that it had. And so after I got here, I thought, I'm going to have to ask ChatGPT. It was not nearly as detailed, but it did have some of the same things in it. There are some religious-based AI models as well. I don't know how many of you use Logos Bible software. I use Accordance mostly, and then I use Logos when I have to, but it has AI built into it, and we'll look at that some. There's Bible.ai, there's Bible GPT, there's VerseWise, and I tried several of these, and there's some of them that are, I'm trying to think of the right way, I'd say creepy. Is that the best way to put it? Like you want to have a conversation with God? Well, to me, the conversation with God has been already delivered. You know, Jude verse 3, once for all delivered to the saints. And you have our conversation with God is prayer, and I assume, unless someone is nearby, they're not privy to what I'm saying with God, but there are also some of them that want you, for instance, some of the Catholics, where you could supposedly have conversations with dead saints. And that just, is just, to me, creepy, I guess is the best, that's the word I can think of to describe that. But can AI assist in preaching? Well, it can assist in research, locating sources, summarizing books and articles, etc. I don't know how many of you are like I am. When I was in graduate school, I had to read a lot. I studied under Brother Thomas Warren, and every quarter's classes I was under him, we had 2,500 pages of reading. Brother Warren just insisted that you read. And I can tell you that when Micah was a baby, I would be sitting there reading at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to tell you, I was reading words, and I was not comprehending. But a lot of times you'll say, I remember reading something, but I'm not certain where I read that. And so I wish I could be able to recall that. Well, I will tell you, Accordance, there's a research tab there that you can do research in. But I'm going to show you Logos. And let's say, for instance, if I wanted to search, and the title of this is, What is the Significance of Adultery in Matthew 19 and verse 9? And so if you're using Logos, what it will do, if you have the subscription, where you could be able to ask it AI, it'll do a synopsis at the top, and then it will, if you'll notice the blue 1, 2, is that large enough for you folks to read it? Those are sources. And if you'll look just below it, it will tell you that the first is the Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospel, second edition by IVP, and it's on divorce. The second one is Mounce's Expository Dictionary of Old and New Testament Words. And it will tell you this synopsis was generated by AI. The results below, check it for accuracy. That's one of the things that Logos has really emphasized. We're providing you this information, but we want you to know we don't guarantee it's true. And that's their big idea of using it, to use it responsibly. I'm going to tell you one of the concerns that I do have about Logos, though, is that when you do a search, it will give you that synopsis. But then right below the synopsis, it will give you a number of sources that you might want to consider. And for instance, the chapter 11, What is Divorce, from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. But you'll notice there's on the right-hand side a little lock. You know what that means? That means I don't own that. So it says, if you want to be able to look at this source, you buy it. And then you scroll down and you say, there's another one. You see the little lock. And then voila, I get one that I actually own, which is the journal Themalius, and volume 13, number 2. Now I can click that and it'll carry me to that article, or I can click summarize over here. Now let's say, for instance, I just get that little brief part there and I want it to summarize it for me so I don't have to read the whole article to see if it's something that addresses maybe an issue that I am concerned with. And then there's others, but you'll notice all the ones that you really say, well, I'd like to read that. They all have the lock on them. They're saying, hey, buy this, buy this, buy this. I'm going to tell you my observation from AI is that it is a lot about money. It's a lot about, monetizing information. Now, will it get cheaper? Probably. Will it become smarter? I expect so. But I'm just telling you right now, if you're using Logos and you're using it for the AI features, you're going to be rather frustrated because everything that you think you want to read. But now I will tell you one good thing of Logos. If you have a good print library, you can scan the ISBN number and it will also put your results there and it will show you, hey, that's in your print library, and then you can go to that portion yourself. So there is benefit to that. But what I was trying to do here is to show you that you can do studies there. But now, if I go back over here to this, I also want to use the idea of ChatGPT. And the reason why I'm going to use it primarily, not because I think it's the best, but because I've got a subscription to it and it's not going to run out on me in the middle of class. So I wasn't going to spend $20 a month for Perplexity, $20 a month for Grok, $20 a month for all of these. So I'm going to use the one that's probably the most useful to me. So I'm going to go to this, and let's say, for instance, I am trying, and I've got several, this is from Perplexity here. Let me just create a new ChatGPT. What's somebody preaching on tomorrow? Some of you preachers, what are you preaching on tomorrow?
Sermon on the Mount.
Sermon on the Mount. Okay. What chapter? 5:17 through 48. Okay. We'll go here and we'll say summarize. If I can type here. Matthew chapter 5:17 through, you're going to do all the way through 48? Oh, wow. You're going to be busy tomorrow. Okay. Here's going to give you a summary of it. Now, I realize that's too small for you to see, but I'll go ahead and put it up larger. But what it's going to do is going to give you a summary. And usually it's 2 to 3 short paragraphs. That can be helpful if you're encountering a text which you may not have preached on or taught on. So there's some good research there. Matthew 5 is probably not one of the better or easier ones to do because we're all familiar with the Sermon on the Mount. But let's say, for instance, you are asked on Saturday night. How many of you are a substitute Bible teacher on? Maybe are you a substitute Bible teacher? Okay. Let's say, for instance, about 9 o'clock tonight, they call you and say, our class tomorrow is on Judges chapter 6. Okay. Anybody know what's in Judges 6? Gideon. Okay. But you're ready to teach. You got to be ready to teach tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Okay. Now, what's one of the things that you would want to know if you're going to teach Judges chapter 6 tomorrow morning? Why did That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, let's do this. He says, ask anything. Okay. What is the book of Judges about? That's a simple question, isn't it? The book of Judges describes a period of Israel's history between the death of Joshua and the establishment of the monarchy, 1380, 1050, depending on chronology. And it says that God raised up these judges, and it talks about the spiritual condition of Israel. Hey, that's pretty good, isn't it? That's a pretty good summary. And you notice immediately here, it knows me already. And I'm going to tell you why I know it knows me. Alliteration. I have asked several times for ChatGPT to alliterate a passage. And so guess what it does when it brings something up? It says, he's going to ask for it to be alliterated. And so it goes ahead and it says sin, servitude, supplication, salvation, and silence. Now, that's pretty good, isn't it? If I had to come up with something quickly like that, that would have been pretty tough for me. But here, you saw how fast it did that. And by the way, the internet's rather slow here, at least for the ones of us who are, just connecting to the standard connection here. But it says, after each cycle, the nation generally becomes more corrupt than before. Oh, that's true too. So here you are, you've got a summary now of what the book of Judges is about. But then it talks about the role of judges and the increasing moral chaos and the theological message from that. But now you say, but I got to teach on judges, and Gideon's a judge, but what does it mean that he's a judge? Is he a guy who comes in with a robe and has a little gavel that he's going to pound? So I'm going to say, what is a judge in the book of Judges? That's a simple question, isn't it? In the book of Judges, a judge was a leader whom God raised up to deliver Israel from the oppression and guide the people during a period between Joshua and the monarchy, not a courtroom judge. And it uses the Hebrew word to explain it means one who governs, delivers, or rules. Hey, that's a pretty good explanation, isn't it? But now you come to Judges chapter 6. And let's say, for instance, you've read through Judges. You're going to have to, if you're going to teach it, you're going to have to read through it several times. And there's a key verse that just pops in your mind that you want to key on. You know what verse I'm going to key on if I'm studying the book of Judges? Judges 6, verse 13. So I'm going to say, what is the significance of Judges 6:13? It reveals Israel's sense of abandonment. Of course, I thought it would throw the verse up there. Oh, it does. Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all of his wonderful deeds our fathers recounted to us? You see, God calls Gideon while he is threshing wheat in the winepress. Y'all see any incongruity there in threshing wheat in a winepress rather than on a threshing floor? Because if you read the text tells you that the Midianites were coming and stealing their grain. And if you're doing it on the threshing floor, which is always on the side of the hill of the mountain so the wind could blow the chaff away, but you're not going to do it there because the Midianites will see you. So where do you go? You go to a wine press to do it. But God calls Gideon to lead the children of Israel out of that Midianite bondage, from that oppression. But Gideon said, are you sure me? Are you sure I should do this? I'm just one of these small people from a small tribe, and I am not important. So what it does, it reveals Israel's sense of abandonment. It shows a misunderstanding of the problem. It reflects an honest faith struggling with the circumstances. You know what? That's not a bad outline for dealing with Judges chapter 6, is it? That's some pretty good ideas. So if you're doing some research here for, somebody trying to prepare quickly for a class that you have not previously studied for, I would say read the text first. Never read this first. Read the text first. Make your notes first. Ask your questions first. And then go and ask this and see if it reflects what you just read. Now, I've already told you that this morning we asked questions about me. And mistakes were made. In fact, there were made 2 or 3 mistakes, didn't it? And if it can make mistakes about me, could it also make mistakes about what God said? Absolutely. So you want to notice something that's right down here at the bottom. You'll see what it says? ChatGPT makes mistakes. Check important info. Can anything be more important than what God said? So check that info. So I wanted to do that. But now let's say, for instance, that's something of what I call a spur of the moment. You need some help. Now, if you were called to teach a class on Saturday night at 9 o'clock, the old phrase like Ghostbusters, who are you going to call? You know who they normally call? Whoever's the preacher. Brother Tony, Joe is sick tonight. His class is tomorrow. And I'm supposed to teach it. And I'm supposed to teach Judges chapter 6. What do you think I ought to do? Well, my thought is you should have had something prepared already so that you'd be ready to do. Forget Judges 6. I'll have a lesson that I know what I know. That's the important thing. But if you've got to fill in, I'm just saying this is an option for doing some quick, basic research. But again, read first. But now let's say you're a preacher. And if you're a preacher, one of the things you are most of the time is broke. No, I'm not. That's not true. Brethren have taken very good care of me. I don't want to leave that impression. If any of our elders that are watching this, I don't want you to think that they didn't do a good job taking care of me for 40 years, because they actually did. But you do have limited resources for purchasing material, do you not? And when you think about material that you can purchase, I've got enough invested in accordance, I could buy a car. That's how much I've got invested in it. I don't have near that much invested in Lagos, but I do it because I'm having to teach using it now. But let's say, for instance, and I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to click to another one of the tabs. You can open an exegetical guide and say, I want the Matthew 19 verse 9. And I'm just bringing this up because this is a good passage to do this. And what it'll do, I've got the English Greek reverse interlinear, the New King James. On the left here, it's got the Textus, or not the Textus Receptus, it's got the NA 28 Greek text. On the right, it's got the New King James. Takes every word, parses it, gives you the, if it's a verb, present active, indicative, first person singular, and it'll take each word, and then you come through there and you can notice, let's say, for instance, I'm going to come down to word moikatai, the word for adultery, and it'll tell you it's a verb, it's a present, and you can just mouse over each of the words there. What does it mean to be a present? What does it mean to be middle or passive? What does it mean third person? And then below that, since I own BDAG, how many of you know what BDAG is? If you do, Bauer, Danker, Art, and Gingrich. Any of you folks who are not preachers know how much that book cost? $150. One book. And BDAG is the premier lexicon of the Greek New Testament. Luanata, also a very good one. There's several others, Liddell and Scott. All of those are good, but I can go to BDAG and put my little mouse over it there, and it'll give me exactly what BDAG has, but it gives me the short gloss right here to the right of it. So there's value in that, but then as you come down to the end of this, there's textual commentaries on this, because there's a textual variant there. You can come down even further than that, and there's other things. You've got all your commentaries, you've got your journals, you've got your visualizations of it, like, for instance, the high definition. I'm just showing you some of the things that you could use. But do you know that you don't have to spend $3,500 to have a lot of this? I want to take you to ChatGPT for just a second here. And let's see if I can find which one of these I put it in. Okay. What I asked, provide the morphology of Matthew 19, verse 9. Again, guess what you got right there at the top? NA 28 UBS text. Then it begins, each word gives you the lemma, the morphology, and the meaning, word by word. And then you come down to The word moikatai, and I'll tell you again, it's a present middle passive. That's exactly the same thing that the expensive program gave you. And then you come down to the bottom here, and there's some syntactical observations. That's something that Logos didn't give you. Boy, I find that pretty interesting, don't you? That it gives you some of those. And it tells you that moikatai, a present indicative, expresses the resulting state action, commits adultery. That's significant there. But you can come on down and you can say, for instance, here, what is the significance of in Matthew 19? Tense, voice, and aspect. The present tense, ongoing, or characteristic action. And you can say, okay, I think I get an idea here. Moikatai, adultery here, is not an act, but what? It's a state. It's continual action. And the present tense provides that for you. And so it says, therefore the sense is not simply he commits an act of adultery once, but rather he is committing adultery. He lives in adultery. Wow. I want to tell you, ChatGPT is smarter than some of our brethren. And so the result of conditional clause, and I'm saying this for those of you who are preachers and you spend any time in the original language, you have some capability here. But again, what does it say at the bottom? It can make mistakes. So if you see something like this, force it to give you documentation or citations, like, for instance, will you provide me citations for the above? Here are the scholarly sources that support the grammatical interpretive observations. Daniel Wallace's Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics. That's a good book, by the way. I've got it in both Logos and Accordance, simply because it came with package. But and of course then Smith's Greek Grammar, Bauer, Daker, Art, and Gingrich. And of course it lists Matthew 5:32, 19:9, and as well as Mark and Luke's accounts on that. You say, wow, that's pretty good documentation, because it not only tells us, but it'll provide the lexical sources and even the places where to find that. So you can say, well, hey, I couldn't afford BDAG, but I can get the information in there provided. Is that significant to y'all guys? For those of you guys who are preaching, to be able to get that information without having to spend $150 for the book? Of course, I'm going to tell you, if you're going to use it much, you go ahead and buy the book, because the book's needed. But I just wanted you to see that information was there. And of course, France's commentary in the New International Commentary of the New Testament, that's an excellent commentary, by the way. I use France's all the time on Matthew. But D.A. Carson's book. So when you force it to, it will provide for you citations and documentation for that. Let me pause here. Anybody have any questions about that? Because I don't want to be the only one talking here.
Where was you 6 months ago before I spent all this money?
That's okay. I've already spent the money too, so that's.
Can you give some ideas on how to ask good questions to get the better responses?
You have to have some information to ask a good question.
Can you ask it?
What?
Can you ask it how to ask a question?
How do I ask a good question on Matthew 19:9? Depends on what you want to explore. Textual, grammatical, theological, or pastoral. Strong questions usually do three things: focus on a specific feature of the text, invite analysis rather than simple recall, and encourage interaction with the context. Well, that's a pretty good response right there. I mean, a lot of this, I'm seeing some of what y'all are seeing for the first time. I mean, that's the reason why I wanted to do this live, is because sometimes I look at this and I say, that's not right. But then sometimes I'm surprised. But do you remember what I told you yesterday? Is ChatGPT learns you and learns the way you ask questions. And if you ask questions on how I feel, how, in other words, they're not structured questions, they're not doctrinal questions, not grammatical questions, you know how it's going to respond to you? How you feel. You can tell what kind of questions I've been asking that reflect this. But that's actually a pretty good thing. But if I go and I read a text, I want to ask myself some questions. Are there some words in there that I need to understand better? Is there some grammatical form there? You know, present versus an aorist. And I know if you're not a Greek person, that doesn't mean a whole lot to you. But a Greek person, those are two significant, verb forms and tenses in the Greek language. And so these are the kind of questions that I would want to ask. But do you have a question? Some kind.
I would like you to, can you scroll down a little bit more there? There we go.
Contextual question.
Yeah.
Oh, there it will just keep going. You can keep repeating questions. Go ahead and let me.
So I've actually done a sermon about Elijah and the idol worshippers
Mm-hmm.
for Kings 18. I was wondering if you could ask to summarize First Kings 18.
I sure can. I'll go up here and I'll do a new chat so it won't keep following that trail right there. Summarize 1 Kings 18. It's going to tell you about Ahab. It's going to tell you about going up to Mount Carmel. I'm going to tell you about the no rain for 3 years. The reason why it didn't rain, Elijah had prayed, and but it says here that there's a dramatic confrontation between the prophet Elijah and the prophets of Baal during the reign of Ahab the king. The chapter demonstrates that Yahweh alone is God. And what it does, it's going to outline the chapter for you. That's a good thing. It says Elijah returns during the drought. Elijah confronts Ahab, the contest on Mount Carmel. And, okay, I got a really good one. Okay. When Elijah is mocking the prophets of Baal, and he says, perhaps he's sleeping, or perhaps he's gone on a journey. What does it mean when Elijah asks if their God was sleeping or gone on a journey? Okay. Meanings of the expression. Deep thought, he's busy. That is a euphemism meaning relieving himself. Y'all may not have known that. Did you know that? That's a euphemism in the Hebrew language that perhaps he's busy, he's in the bathroom. That's a polite way of putting it. Usually, like Saul, he's going into the cave to attend to his needs. But I thought that was that might be something you could, when Elijah is mocking the prophets of Baal, I mean, he's really mocking them. This is not just, maybe he's busy. No, he's saying maybe your God is gone. He's like a man who has to go into the bathroom to relieve himself. I mean, he's really getting nasty with them. Maybe that's not the term. He's getting very bold in his rebuke of them. Follow-up question? Okay.
I like to teach one-on-one with people. Okay. Is there any way of using AI perhaps in a way of giving like homework assignments? You've covered some verses, and then you're gonna have some kind of structured chat GBT questions for them to go home and research. Is there any?
Okay.
Are you doing anything like that using AI to help
I, w-
some people one-on-one that you're working with?
I would be so hesitant to do that. And the reason why is because you don't know the answer Chat GPT is going to give. I know the answer Scripture is going to give. I'm going to give you one. Let Micah say.
So I was just going to say, in terms of that, what ChatGPT can do is, I don't know if you guys are anything like me. I'm a visual person. Sometimes some concepts in the Bible, like I'm teaching the Book of Revelation for teenagers. There's an artist out there that's drawn all these images of what the scenes are. ChatGPT is really good at creating images, and in those occasions, if someone's difficulty with a concept, sometimes it providing an image could be a good study tool. But as far as it coming up with the material, that might be, I think that's the common name.
Let me give you how you might could use it. Maybe I wouldn't let them consult Chat GPT. I would use this. Okay, let me do a new chat here, and I'm going to say this.
That's important too,
Yeah.
because I've had to do some training on my day job.
Mhm.
You don't start a new conversation. It gets confused. Think you're still on the same.
Still on the
thing.
same thing.
So starting a new session, if you will.
What I would ask is, what are the requirements to be saved in the book of Acts? Now, you're seeing this for the first time just like I am. The book of Acts records the earliest preaching of the gospel and shows what people were instructed to do in order to receive salvation. Hearing the gospel, belief, repentance, confession and faith, baptism in the name of Jesus. You know why it gave that answer? Because, no, I've not asked this question before, but it knows who I am by now.
Right.
It knows that, for instance, the other day, I asked a question that says, those in the restoration movement hold this. And I'm like, I never said the word restoration movement. So it's already figured out who I am, which that sort of is a little bit spooky too, because and I would tell you, if you're wanting to see what it would do for a normal person, is log out of your account and create create you a Yahoo account and log in a new account there, and then ask the question for the first time. That will give you what it would probably give to the first person who asked that. But it already knows me by now, and it knows what the fact that I even asked for Acts 2:38. But you'll notice here examples: Acts 2:38, Acts 8:12, Acts 10:48, Acts 16:33. You know what it's already keyed on? Baptism is required in each of the accounts of conversion, which is true. But don't know if it would give that answer to everybody else. But let's say, for instance, you're doing a one-on-one Bible study. Let's say, give me a list of questions that I could discuss with a prospect.
Dude, that's good.
You're studying salvation with a prospective convert using the book of Acts. What does the Bible say Jesus is? Why was the death of Jesus necessary? What does the resurrection of Jesus prove? I don't know why it didn't go ahead and put Acts 17, 30, and 31 there, but what does it mean for Jesus to be Lord? Acts 2:36. Questions from Acts 2. According to the Acts of the Apostles, Acts 2:37, how did the people feel after hearing Peter's sermon? What did the question did the crowd ask Peter? In Acts 2:38, what two things did Peter command them to do? And that's not bad questions to ask, to say, here's 9 questions here. I think there's more than that. There's a list of questions that you, instead of you having to devise this question, say, here's some questions I'd like to leave with you. Now, what I would do is I probably would take those questions and delete some of them, ask some others, but that would give you some kind of.
Hop in there if you not for sure baptism is essential. What do you think based upon the book of Acts? And then see what answer it would be.
Okay, that's a long type.
Well,
I,
well,
I,
there's a reason why I'm saying that is because the caution of AI is it's going to follow you, right?
It could agree with you.
It
Yeah.
could agree with you and then start giving those answers. So
Yeah.
you do have to use it with caution and you do have to say the right things.
It's a people pleaser.
it is. It is a people pleaser. Okay, I want one other thing because I've got just a few minutes left. I really didn't know that. I really had a whole lot more material, but one of the things that preachers need quite frequently is a title slide for their PowerPoint keynote. And let's say, for instance, I can say here, create me a wide screen graphic. I can't type today. For PowerPoint that is based on John 1:14. The Word became flesh, dwelt among us. We beheld His glory, the glory of the only begotten Father, full of grace and truth. Now, reason why I didn't do a whole lot of these is because sometimes of the day, you know what it does? It grunts, it grunts, it grunts. And of course, ChatGPT will let you think, okay, it's got it. And it'll sit there and sort of be blurry for 30 seconds or so. But what it will do, and I'll have to probably shrink this down for you to be able to see the whole picture, but it will work on a graphic there, and there it is. I might not like that. I might say, I would prefer not to have Jesus, looking like that, or I would prefer to have something else. You can keep telling it to modify it. You can say instead of a brown tint, put a blue tint to the photo. And you can just keep telling it, do this, don't, remove this, add this, and it will keep adding stuff. The picture that I began with was created with ChatGPT. And these become royalty-free images. Now, you see, a lot of people will spend a lot of money trying to buy images to put in there, and this will create royalty-free images. And you say, well, it's taking a while. But believe me, I can take 30 seconds instead of spending $10 for an image. So, and I actually can get the image that I want. And like, for instance, you see the blue tint? It just changed that. If I go back over here to the start, that picture right there, I said, have a preacher sitting at a computer and, Bible left hand of him. And then it brought up a Catholic priest with a clerical collar. And I said, remove the clerical collar and put a coat and tie on him, or put a tie on him. So it did that. And then it had an old PC. I don't know why it got one of the old PCs with old CRT monitors. And I said, put a MacBook Pro. And it did that. So, I mean, it's amazing how much, you can ask it to do things. So you can create these. Let me go ahead to the next slide because I've really only got 5 minutes. You can ask Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini to create a sermon outline on John 1:14 and alliterate all 3 points. Let's say, for instance, you have already studied a passage like John 1 verse 14, and you already have in your mind what you want to say. You know what the text says. That's not the question. The question is, can I have a really good polished outline that helps me? And again, I would say be real careful of this because you don't want to, let me quit this one and go back over here and start a new chat. This is, say, give me a 3-point outline on John 1:14 with points. And I'll make it large again. Title, When the Word Became Flesh, the incarnation of the Word, the indwelling with humanity, and the illumination of His glory. Does that reflect what the text says? Well, if you'll notice, the Word became flesh. That's the incarnation. Dwelt among us, the indwelling with humanity, the illumination of His glory. We beheld His glory, the glory of the only begotten of the Father. That's not really a bad outline. And that actually gives you something that you could take the text and work with it. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's just like a thesaurus sometimes, though. I can look up a word in a thesaurus and I'd say, nobody in McMinnville, Tennessee would ever use the word that is there. Have any of y'all ever done that? To find a thesaurus and then find a word and you say, boy, that says just what I want to say. But then you got to say, but who in the congregation would have a clue what that means? I used one last week in a meeting. I preached a sermon on, would you recognize Jesus? And I started out with Luke chapter 2, being lost. He really wasn't lost, but he was lost to Mary and Joseph. And he's been gone 3 days, and they're going to try to find Jesus all over Jerusalem. Can you imagine how panicky parents would be to lose a 12-year-old? And how are you going to recognize him? Well, I don't believe Mary and Joseph recognized the role that Jesus intended to fulfill right then, because it says they did not understand. And then I said, well, do you think people today recognize Jesus? And one of the things I started with, because I had all my points beginning with the letter M, and I got to the first one, and I wanted to use his name, but name begins with N. So I went to the thesaurus, and it says moniker, M-O-N-I-K-E-R. How many of you use the word moniker much? So what I did, I put it on the outline, moniker, but I said to the congregation, I said, do you know what that means? I said, that is a term to describe the name of a person. And I said, so you know and I know, that's why I'm using this, because it helps me remember in my mind the outline that I want to use. Do you have another question? Okay. I thought you had another question. But that was one of the things I wanted just to emphasize. You can create a list of questions from a particular text. You can create widescreen graphics. But there's other tasks, and I've got just about a couple minutes. You can schedule volunteers. You can have visitor follow-up texts, email messages. You can create reels for social media. If you don't know what a reel is, if you're scrolling through Facebook and you see these little reels, you can have those that'll be created. You can have real-time AI translation of captions for those speaking another language. For instance, our elders, we have an English congregation that meets in our auditorium, but we have another Hispanic congregation that meets in the fellowship room. And this past Sunday, the preacher for the Hispanic congregation, his uncle died and he had to go back to Mexico real quickly. And the elder said it would have been nice if we could have had where we streamed our services for them to be able to see the sermon, but have Spanish translation real time for them to be able to see. And that's one of the things that they have been investigating. I found out it's available, but it's about $100 an hour to have it done. So you start thinking, okay, you got 2 or 3 services, and you want to have real-time translation there, you can do that. But and that's an AI tool. Couple guardrails, and I'm going to quit. Human oversight. Make sure there's always somebody there who's double checking everything. Number 2, transparency. Be open with the congregation when you're using AI to let them know that this is something that's being used. Number 3, privacy. Protect sensitive member data, never putting personal names or private details into public AI models. I mentioned to you, Micah asked about who I was. That's scary. But how do you think your members would feel if you started putting their names, addresses, birth dates, and AI models, and what happens to that? Because once you put it there, you lose control. It's in their database, or in their language model. Any quick questions? Because I'm actually out of time. Thank you guys so much. I hope this was helpful to you.